The UK's Deputy Prime Minister has made a controversial proposal to restrict the right to a jury trial for the majority of court cases. It's an attempt to ease unprecedented backlogs in the courts in the UK, but critics say the changes would be a threat to the democratic process. Dr S Chelvan is Head of Immigration, Public Law and Civil Liberties at 33 Bedford Row Chambers in London, and he joins me now. S Chelvan, good to have you with us today. Fewer juries. Is this something that would be favoured by the legal fraternity in the UK?
Well, it's not only whether it would be favoured by the legal fraternity. David Lammy, our Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary, only said 5 years ago that jury trials are a fundamental part of our constitutional settlement. So 5 years later, he's trying to scrap jury trials for up to sentences which could go up to 5 years. So this is a fundamental change in the constitution of the United Kingdom, which has protected jury trials for the past 800 years.
Yes, and what do you make of the argument that this is meant to clear this massive backlog of cases that could number up to past 100,000 by the year 2030?
Well, this is a situation which has been quite clear to everybody who's working in the criminal justice system prior to COVID 5 years ago. So it has a long history in both the Labour and Conservative administrations. Importantly, in some cases, people are having to travel up to 2 hours to get to their nearest Crown Court. And what's happening is that it's a fundamental breakdown. And what needs to happen is that there needs to be a huge boost in income in relation to the criminal justice system. Because what will happen is that there'll be lots of trials which happen and the sentences and convictions will be appealed. So in the medium and long term, it's not going to sort out the backlog. But importantly, everybody has a fundamental right in the United Kingdom to have a trial by jury for certain crimes in relation to 12 of your peers. So clearly, whilst Parliament is supreme, the courts will review, and it may even go to the European Court of Human Rights because it's a fundamental breach of the right to a fair trial.
Yes, and then beyond the obvious, what are the main differences if a case is tried by jury versus a single judge?
Well, I don't know how long I've got to go. In summary, the
Yes.
point being here is that there could be an issue regarding group mentality, that if a judge is hearing a case in and out every day, then, one doesn't look at judicial bias. I mean, clearly, as a human rights lawyer, I'd never even suggest that occurs. But, anybody who's witnessed a jury trial or been part of a jury would be able to provide you with the evidence of how important it is, because it's those 12 members of the jury really take their duty as a fundamental part of their public service. So that's very, very important. And, today we're having a new budget. The Chancellor of the Exchequer is going to Parliament in the next few hours to present a budget in relation to tax freezes, which will affect clearly more working people. But importantly, it's sort of giving a signal. What David Lammy is doing as Justice Secretary is that there's going to be cuts, and even further cuts. So we are going into an age of austerity, whatever the politicians say. But importantly, what we shouldn't forget is we cannot erode fundamental rights, and especially the right to a jury trial.
Yes, of course. And if these austerity measures need to be in place I suppose, in one way of doing that is to have fewer jury trials. How should, perhaps from your perspective, should the backlog of cases be resolved, if not the measures that the government is planning at the moment?
Well, an injection of cash. It's obvious, and it's been a fundamental crisis for many, many, many years. And what needs to happen is that, remember, I'm not here as a political commentator. I'm only here as a legal commentator. And what clearly needs to do is that we need to, rather than close jury centres, for Crown Courts which are running these cases, we need to reopen them. We need to be able to make sure that they're fit for purpose. We need to make sure that the criminal justice system is fit for purpose, and that's what needs to be done. We need a huge injection of cash into various areas of our framework, but importantly in relation to this, in relation to our criminal justice system, the courts get more judges, stop recorders, which are part-time judges, from sitting. We need to make sure that they can sit and hear those trials, and importantly, we need trials by jury.
Of course, there's this Law Society survey that's revealing almost 3/4 of solicitors they were concerned about jury trials being removed. Will the government consider those views, given that so many of those who sit in Westminster were or are lawyers?
Not as the proportion that they used to be.
Yes.
There's been a fundamental shift, but I'm not here to discuss that. But importantly, what will happen is that there'll be consultation, there'll be bills upon it. It has to go through the House of Commons and then the House of Lords. So clearly there'll be a lot of those lawyers and non-lawyers who will say, look, this is a fundamental change. We will not support that. We've seen that with the immigration changes of Shamima Mahmood. I went saw on your programme last week talking about that and see whether the Home Secretary will be able to do that. Even if these changes get through Parliament, there will be challenges in the courts. So that would be very important as well. But look, when it comes down to it, we have to have core principles and what we all believe in, because we need to be having protections, fundamental protections that every one of us should see are ensured by our government. So yes, the Law Society, 75%. What we may see is more strikes. I know you've had that in Australia as well, in relation to strikes by legal professionals. These are things that we don't really do, but there needs to be a fundamental breakdown with our trust between the relationship between us and our government, which leads to strikes. So I can see that happening as well. But at this stage, it's very important to signal to the government that we do not lose these fundamental rights.
Okay, we'll see how this story pans out. It's quite fascinating development there out of the UK. Dr S Chelvan, thank you so much for your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.